Hi, Raquello, soulologist. So I wanted to come on today and talk about our survival resources. It's helpful to watch another video that I'll link, which is about the wise adult self. But I wanted to talk to you about our 5 survival resources, and you would have probably heard about them before. But I want to talk about them in a way that is helpful when we start to realize that these survival resources that we were born with and then developed actually become full-bodied parts of us or ways of being in the world. So what I mean by that is they start off as survival resources that help us move towards things that are reassuring and comforting and safe and help us explore in the world. And they also help us move away from the opposite of that. But they are always more than survival resources, because as we engage in them, they start to, they have sensations that go with them. They have the sorts of urges for action that go with them, or behaviours that go with them. They have emotions that are associated with them, and they have sorts of thoughts that we have. And they are distinct, separate parts. And it's really helpful to differentiate these survival resources that have become full parts of us. Sometimes these parts work together to help each other, and sometimes they oppose each other. So really helpful from a wise adult perspective to, with curiosity and compassion, start to look at how these parts are present in your current world and who's speaking inside of you. So the survival resources that we're born with are attach, submit, and fear. And then as we develop our brain, we develop fight and flight. And all of them have, again, they're survival resources. They have really positive qualities that go with them. Attach is a dependence, it's a need, it's a move towards comfort. Submit is something that we use to de-escalate discomfort, to de-escalate, for example, cross spaces. This submit helps us learn not my needs. So sometimes your needs, sometimes not my needs. When we engage in and submit, it often has the sensation or emotion of guilt, so we can feel bad. That's a great temporary teaching resource to engage in. So if we go to run across the road and our caregiver grabs our hand, we get this feeling bad because we don't understand all of the context. If that is repaired, if the parent goes, oh, it's just that there's a lot of cars, then we come out of that reflective guilt. So that is a really helpful resource to have. Again, if we've had to submit too often to de-escalate cross spaces or overwhelming situations, or just to hide, to be quiet, that can develop into shame, depression, self-hatred. It can also develop into caretaking and people-pleasing, putting other people first too often. Fear is a survival resource, really appropriate to know when something is scary. But if something's been scary too often, things that have happened that shouldn't have happened in your family of origin, then we can overdevelop that fear response. And we have all the sorts of sensations that go with that, the urges for action, the sorts of emotions, and it can develop into anxiety and panic. Fight and flight are really appropriate survival resources to develop from adolescence. So with submit, it's a hide. We might be able to go to our room, but it's not a true capacity to leave a situation. Flight allows us to do that, to turn away from things, to be ambivalent about things, to distance ourselves and to leave. If it's overdeveloped, it can turn into escape, unable to commit, ambivalence, indecision. Fight is really important. Fight is our no, it's our boundary, it's our, as we develop our autonomy. If it's not safe to develop your fight, it can be repressed. You can have repressed anger, suppressed autonomy. It can also be overdeveloped, so there can be that excessive anger or a need to over-control. So I'm just encouraging you from this really compassionate, wise adult self that we have has never been wounded, that we may have disconnected from, to start to just suppose that you have 5 different parts as well as the wise self, so there's 6, and have a look at the sorts of sensations that happen, for example, when you have a need, the sorts of emotions you have. Does submit, for example, jump in? I want to ask for help, says attach, and then submit goes, oh no, I don't think they'll want to help. Or does fear jump in and go, no, that'll really annoy them? And then what do fight and flight do? Do they just do it themselves, or do they pretend that they don't care and just say, I don't care? So if you start to just imagine that you have these 5 parts, start to differentiate. The idea is not to split you, but to acknowledge that there are 5 different ways that we practiced as we were growing up, and that they can sometimes help each other or they can sometimes oppose each other. And who's leading your life? Is it your wise adult self, or is it the younger parts of you that developed? So just have a look at those 5 different parts: sensations, urges for action, the sorts of thoughts I have, and the sorts of emotions that go with them, and start to acknowledge them, listen. In that way, you can start to choose and make conscious choices about who needs to be nurtured inside me, who's making the loudest noise, who's fighting with each other. Good luck.